In this course I will teach you how to create looping animated backgrounds in After Effects. So as a motion designer or a content creator, one of your job is to take static or boring scenes and turn them into something attractive. And this is exactly where this course comes in handy. So in this course you will learn how to create simple, complex or even more complex backgrounds, all these using really simple and easy techniques. We will cover topics such as creating base animation, using effects to create patterns and techniques to create perfect animated loops. Not only this, I will also share some tips and tricks that will help you out in creating your own animations very easily. So this course is for everyone, from beginners who are just getting started and to people who already know how to use After Effects. So without wasting any further ado, I'll see you in the class. Alright, so right now I'm in After Effects, and before I start creating any animation, here are a few things that will help you out throughout this course. So the first thing is that I'm using a Windows PC, and in case you are using a Mac, then you have to make sure of these two keys. So if I say press Control key, that means you have to press Command key on Mac, and if I say press Alt, that means you have to press Option key on Mac. So the shortcut Ctrl plus D on Windows becomes Command plus D on Mac, and the shortcut Alt plus G on Windows becomes Option plus G on Mac. So just make sure of these two keys. Now the second thing is, if I select the shape tool and if I draw any shape, here you can see that its anchor point automatically moves to the center. Now if you want to do this setting, you have to go to Edit, and under Preferences you can see we have this general option, and under that you make sure that this option is checked, which says center anchor point in new shape layer, and yours might be unchecked, so make sure to check it and just click on OK. Now this was introduced in After Effects CC version 2018 onwards, so if you are not able to see this, then don't worry, you can still do this manually. So let me show you how. So here you can see I have this shape layer, and let's suppose its anchor point was somewhere around here. And now you want to center this into this shape layer. So all you have to do is just hold down the Control key, and if you are using Mac, then you have to press the Command key and just simply double click on this icon, and it will center the anchor point. So the next thing is that you can see I have different panels in my layout, and if you are not able to find any particular panel in your After Effects, then you can enable it. So for example, if you are not able to see the Align panel, then you can enable it by simply going to Windows, and from here you can check this Align panel. So here are a few basic shortcuts that I will be using throughout this course. So if you have any layer, you can select it, and if you want to open up its position, scale, rotation or opacity property, you can simply press these keys. So P is for position, S is for scale, R for rotation and T for opacity. Now you can add a keyframe by simply clicking on this stopwatch, and you can just animate it by moving the cursor and just add another keyframe like this. Now if you want to show multiple properties, you can simply select the layer, and if I hold down the shift key, I can press P if I want to add position. I can also press S if I want to reveal scale as well, and in the same way I can press R to open up the rotation property at the same times. Now I can add keyframes to multiple properties, and if you have a layer you want to see all the keyframes, just select it and you can press U on your keyboard, and it will give all the properties which have keyframes enabled, just like this. Now the next shortcut is duplicating a layer. So you can do that by pressing Ctrl D or Command D on Mac. If you select a layer, you can press Ctrl D and it will duplicate a layer. Alternatively, you can select the layer, you can go to Edit, and from here you can choose the duplicate. Here is the shortcut. So the next shortcut is, if I select a layer and press Ctrl Shift T, you can see that it splits the layer. So it will split wherever you have your timeline cursor, and you can just move it somewhere else and press Ctrl Shift T and it will split the layer. Now you can also trim the layer. So if I move it somewhere around here, and if I select the layer, I can hold down the Alt key and then press the left square bracket, and here you can see it trims the layer. And if I press the Alt plus right square bracket, it trims the layer from the right side. So these are the few shortcuts that will help you out throughout this course. And now let's start creating some animation. So first we are going to create a simple animated background, and for that let's create a new composition. So go to the composition and let's create a new comp. Let's call this base animation 1, and for width and height let's set it to 1920 by 1080. Frame rate you can select whatever you want. I'm going to select 30 fps, and duration let's set it to 5 seconds. Just click on OK. So now I'm going to add a shape. So for that, let's select the shape tool, and if you click and hold, you can see we have different shape tools, and for this one I'm going to select the polygon tool. So once you have selected your shape tool, you can simply click anywhere you want, and if you click and drag, you can see it starts creating our shape. And if you hold on the shift key, you can see that it snaps one of the edges, so you can just scale it in proper proportions. And if I let it go, here you can see we have this shape. Now as you can see that I have created a triangle, so yours might be a square or a pentagon. Don't worry, we can fix that by simply going under the properties. So over here we have polystar properties, and if I go under polystar path, here you can see we have the number of points. So if I set this to something like 5, here you can see we have a pentagon, and if I set this to 4, we have a square, and for this one I'm going to set it to 3 for a triangle. Also you can see that its anchor point is in the center, and in case yours is not, then you can simply select the layer, hold down the control key or command key on Mac, just simply double click on this pan anchor tool and it will move it into the center. So now let's tweak our shape, and if I go under transform properties, and from here we can see we have the scale option, so I can just scale it down. So you can scale it however you want, so let's just scale it to something like this. So this is looking good, so you can select it and just move it somewhere around here. And as you can see that its anchor point is not in the center, so again we can select the layer, hold down the control key, double click on this, and it will make it into the center. Now let's add a repeater to this. So if I just simply collapse this, and from this add option you can simply click and add a repeater, and as you can see that it starts creating repeated copies of our shape layer. So if I go under repeater property, here you can see we have the copies option. So right now it's set to 3, so we have 3 copies, and we can set it to something like 25, and you can see that it creates 25 copies of our shape layer, and which extends to a certain distance like this. And here we have the offset option. So right now you can see that our main shape layer is this very first triangle. So if I offset it and set it to something like -10, so now you can see that our main shape layer has moved, and now it is at number 10 in this line, and you can change the offset value and it will change the position of your main shape layer. So for this one, let's set it to 10. Also, if you go under transform for repeater, here you can see we have few properties. So for this one, we're going to play with the position. So if I increase this position value along the X value, so you can see that the distance between the shape layer is increasing. So you can set whatever distance you want. And for this one, I'm going to set this to 150. Now remember this value, whatever you type here, just remember this because we are going to use it later on. So if I close this repeater, now I'm going to add another repeater. And for this one, I'm going to set the copies to 25 as well. And same with the offset, let's set it to -10. And here you can see that now we have multiple copies. So we are going to change the transform properties. So under that we can set the position or X value to 0, and for the Y value let's set this to 150. So the same value that you set in the repeater one. So now you can see we have this grid pattern, and you can see that it has extended to the whole composition size, which is looking good. Now let's animate this shape layer. So if I select the shape and press P on the keyboard for position, I can just simply zero the position values, and you can see that we have moved our shape layer to the very starting or the top corner. Now let's add a keyframe for the position, and we can move the timeline cursor to somewhere around 2 seconds. And if you remember the value, which was 150, which we added in the repeater, we are going to add the same value over here. So to the X value, let's just set it to 150. And now if I play back, here you can see that we have this animation, but as you can see that it stops after 2 seconds. But don't worry, we are going to add it into a perfect loop. So we can just simply select this endpoint and just move it till 2 seconds. And now it will only play this region. So if I play the animation, here you can see that we have created a perfect loop and it is animating. So in the same way, if you want the shape to move into some other direction, so what if we wanted the animation to go to the left side? So I can set this value to -150, just like this. And now if I play back, here you can see that the same animation is going to the opposite side. And what if you wanted this to go up? So we can just simply go to the last keyframe and let's set the X value to 0. For this one, we are going to change the Y value. So now let's set this to 150. And remember, we are changing the position to the exact value that we entered in the repeater position value. So if you added something like 200, you have to place 200 over here. And now if I play back, here you can see that now the animation is going downward, and you can add -150 if you want it to go upward. Just like this. And you might have noticed that over here we have half triangle, and on this side we have completely blank area, which is not looking good. So we can fix that by simply going to the first keyframe, and remember we haven't added any animation to the X value, so I can just set it to something like 50 so that it moves to somewhere around here, and I can go to the last keyframe and set the X value to 50 as well. So it will offset the whole animation like this, and here you can see that we have fixed our animation and now it is looking much better. And if you want this animation to move diagonally, you can add animation to both the X and Y. Let's set this value to 150, and in the beginning you can see both the keyframe values are 0, and at 2 seconds the X and values are 150 and -150. So if I play back, here you can see we have added some diagonal movement to our animation. So this is completely up to you. You can change its direction and move its value to whatever you want, and it will start animating. So I'm going to change it to move only in the X value. So I'm going to set this to 0, and now our shape is animating only in the X value. So once you are happy with your animation, you can simply click over here and just simply right click, and you can click on trim comp to work area. So it will make the composition duration to exactly what you want. And now we are pretty much done with the animation part. So next step is to loop this animation. So now we are done with the base animation, and let's see how we can create infinite loop with this. So for that, let's create a new composition and let's call this animation 1. All the things will remain same, and let's just change the duration to something like 30 seconds. Just click on OK. Now I'm going to drag our base animation to this composition. So our next step is to loop it out so that we can use it in our projects. So there are two ways in which you can loop this animation, and I'm going to teach you both the methods only under one condition. You'll have to promise me that you will use only the second method. So do you promise me? Okay, who said no? Okay, just kidding. So there are two ways. So the first way is you can simply select the layer, and if I press Ctrl D to duplicate it or Command D on Mac, I can simply move this layer, and if I go to the very end, I can just simply snap it to the endpoint. And now if I play back, here you can see that we have created the loop, but it is only going to 4 seconds. So I can just simply duplicate it again and move it to the end. And if I play back, here we can see I have created a 6 second long animation. So you can again select all the layers and just simply move it just like this, and you can just keep on doing it.
6.5 hours later.
So the problem with this method is, what if you wanted your loop to go for 10 minutes or 10 hours, 10 days, or maybe 10 years? So you cannot simply just duplicate it and just repeat this step on and on. So there is a better way, which is the method 2. So if I delete all the other layers, and I can select the base animation. If I right click, I can go under time, and here we have the option for time remapping. If I click on it, and from here you can see we have the time remap option. So all you have to do is just hold down the Alt key and you can click on the stopwatch, and from here you can type this expression. Just type exactly how I'm typing, and after that just simply click anywhere you want, and now you can extend its endpoint and you can just extend it to wherever you want. And if I play back, here you can see we have this infinite loop, and it will keep on going to whatever duration you want. So if you want just 22 seconds, you can just trim it to there and it will go till 22 seconds. In the same way, you can extend it to whatever duration you want. So this is a much better way, and you have to promise me that you will use this because it makes your timeline look very tidy because you don't want like 15 layers just for the simple animation. You can do that same work in simply a one layer, just like this. Now there is one small problem. So if I select this and press U, it will give all the keyframes. And if I go to the second keyframe and if I play back, here you can see that we have this blank frame over here, and which is causing this problem, and it will cause a flicker. So you can fix that by simply trimming this comp like this and just simply move it to somewhere like this, and you can see now we have fixed that problem and this loop will go on forever. So we can also add some secondary motion to our base animation, and let me show you what I mean. So if I go to the base animation, and here you can see we have our triangles, and remember I told you to add the shape using the polygon tool, and here is the fun part. So if I go under the shape layer and under content, if I go polystar path, from here I can change the points to whatever I want. So if I set it to something like 4, here you can see now our shapes have changed. So if I go to the main animation, here you can see we have the same animation but with different shape. So if you want to change it to circle, you can just simply set its value to something really high, something like this. So now we have these circles. So you can also, if you want, you can change its scale. If you think that these are looking like really big, you can just simply change its value to something like this. So now we have this animated dot background. So in the same way, you can also add some secondary motion. So if I set this value to 4, so that we have these squares, and I can also animate its rotation just like this. So if I set a keyframe over here for rotation, and now I can move to the very end, and over here I can change the rotation value. So to change this value, just simply divide 360 by the number of points. So we have 4 points in this square, so I can divide it by 4 and it will give you 90. So if you have a triangle, you can divide 360 by 3, and same goes for other shapes. So if I play back, here you can see we have added some rotation to our animation, and you can just simply select the keyframe and move it to the very end just like this, so that it will result in a perfect loop like this. Now if I go back, here you can see we have the same animation but with different shape, and we have also added some secondary animation. Now what if you wanted to change the values? So if I select the layer and press U, it will give all the keyframes. Now you can see that I cannot go to the very end, so you can just simply select the keyframes and just move it over here, and you can change the values to whatever you want, just like this, and just simply select the keyframes and then move it to the very end just like this, and now you have changed your animation. So this is how you can add some secondary animation to your keyframes as well. You can also add some colors to it. So let me just quickly create a new solid, and you can set its color to whatever you want. Let's set it to something like this, and just place it below the animation layer and select the animation, and you can search for fill effect. Just simply drag it onto this layer and just simply select a different color, something like this. So if I play back, here you can see we have added some colors to our animation. So this is how you can create some simple animated backgrounds. Now we are going to create some complex background animation, and the technique that I'm going to show you is very easy and yet very powerful. With a little tweak, you can completely change the look of your background, and you can create a new background with just a few clicks. So let's begin. So first of all, I'm going to create a new composition. So again, go to composition, new comp, and I'm going to call this base animation 2. For this one, we are going to set the width and height to 500 by 500, and all the things will remain same. Let's set the duration to something like 5 seconds and just click on OK. So here we have our square composition. Now I'm going to add a shape layer. So for that, I'm going to use the polygon tool once again, because later on you can change the number of points and you can create a new shape without having to animate it. Now just click anywhere in your composition, and if you hold down the Control and Shift key, you can see that it will snap it into the center, and just like that you can just align it in the center of this composition. And for this one, I'm going to change the number of points to 4, since we want a square, something like this. And if I go to rotation, I can just rotate it by 45 degree so that we have a square of this kind. And once again, I'm going to center its anchor point. So select the layer, hold down the control key and double click on this pan anchor tool. Now I'm going to align it into the center of this comb, just like that. So if I select this layer, I don't want the fill inside the layer. So if you select the layer, and you can just simply click on this fill, and from here you can set it to none. Just click on OK. Now I want the stroke around this outline, so you can just simply increase this value. Let's go with something like 30. And again, just make sure that it is in the center. So you can select it and you can press S on the keyboard to scale it down or scale it up however you want, which we are going to do it later. So first of all, I'm going to add some animation to this. So the first animation that I'm going to use is, if I go under the properties, and I can add a trim path. And if I lower down the trim path, here you can see we have two options, start and end. So using them, I can animate the outline of this square. And let's start from 0, and I will add a keyframe to both these parameters. And now I'm going to move my cursor to something like 3 seconds, just like this, and I'm going to set the end frame to 100. And in the same way, I'm going to set the start value also to 100. Now if I play back here, you can see that we cannot see our animation because both the keyframes are at the same place, so we need to displace them. So in order to do that, we can select the keyframe and just move it to somewhere around 1 second, like this. And for this one, the bottom one, we can just select it and just move it around 2 seconds. So you can see that these keyframes start from 0 and go to 100, and this one starts from 0 from here and it goes to 100. So if I play back here, you can see we have this sort of animation, okay, which is looking nice. So now let's add some easing to this line. So in order to do that, you can select the keyframes. So just simply drag and select all the keyframes, and now you can press F9 on your keyboard, or you can just simply right click, assistant, easy ease. And if you click over this icon, you can go into the graph editor. Now your graph might be looking different, so make sure you click over here and you are in the edit speed graph. Once you are in the edit speed graph, you can select the keyframes and just tweak them so that your graph looks something like this. Now select the other end and just make sure your graph looks something like this. And now if I play back here, you can see that we have this sort of animation and we have added some really nice easing to it. So if I go back, and I can add some more animation to this. So for example, I can add some rotation to this. So let's select this, press R on the keyboard for rotation, and let's add a keyframe. And again, we are going to move it to 3 seconds because the other keyframes are also at 3 seconds. So for this one, I'm going to set its value to 90. And now if I play back, you can see we have this sort of animation, but you might notice that the edges are going outside this area. So we have to scale it down a little bit, something like this. Again, if you want, you can play around with the stroke. You can lower it down or make it thick, however you want. For this one, we are going to stick with 30. So we are pretty much done with our animation, and I can just simply again move the end point over here, and I can right click and click on trim comb to work area so that we have this sort of animation. Now I'm going to create another composition. So go to composition, new comp. Let's call this one animation 2. And for this one, we are going to set the width and height to 1920 by 1080, and all the things will remain same. You can just increase the duration. Let's again go to 30 seconds and just click on OK. So once you are inside the animation 2, we can just drag our base animation. So if I play back, here you can see we have this animation. Now we are going to add some effects to it so that it will cover the whole screen. So under the effects panel, just search for CC Reptile and just drag it onto your base animation. And from here we are going to expand these properties. So you can expand it to the right side. So let's just set its value to 3000, 3000, and just set it to 2000, 2000. Just make sure that these values are high enough so that the entire screen is covered with your object. Now you might notice that this is quite large, so we can select the layer and press S on the keyboard, and you can just simply scale it down. If you scale it down too much, you might notice that these are like really short, so you will have to extend them like this. But for this one, we're going to just make them something around 38 or maybe 40, just like this. So now if I play back here, you can see we already have some repeating animation, which is really nice. And if you want, you can go with this look, but now I'm going to show you how you can tweak it more. So once again, before I proceed, I'm going to just animate it infinitely. So I can just select the layer and right click, go to time remapping, enable time remapping. And once again, I'm going to hold down the Alt key, or if you're on Mac, you can hold down the Option key and just simply click on this stopwatch. So now you can again type this expression, loop out brackets, and if I click, now I can simply drag this so that I can extend it to the endpoint. Once again, you might notice that for this one we might not be seeing the gap because we already have a blank frame over there. So we are not going to take any chances, just simply drag it over here and just extend it again. So now we have this sort of animation. So now let's tweak and see how we can make it more complex. So over here you can see we have this option called tiling. Now this is a very powerful option and it gives you a bunch of different presets which you can choose from. So if I simply click on this, and now if I play back, here you can see we already have a different looking animation, and all we did was just change this property. And I can simply change it to flip vertical, and again we have different look. So in the same way you can click and you can have different type of animations. So you can see we are getting different looks and different animated backgrounds by simply selecting these properties. So you can choose random if you want something like this. So for this one we are probably going to stick with the unfold, just like this. Now I'm going to show you a couple of examples that you can create using this same technique. So if I go back to our base animation, and here you can see we have our square. So remember we used the polygon tool, so I can simply select the layer and go under the polystar path and change the number of points to, let's say, 3 if I want a triangle. And again I can select this, press R on the keyboard because we need to change the rotation. So let's move this keyframe back, and we are going to again divide it 360 by the number of points we have. So for this one we have 3 points, so I will divide it by 3 and it will give us a value. And now if I play back, here you can see we have the same animation but with a triangle. So if I go back, here you can see we have created different animation by simply changing the number of points. In the same way you can animate and create any shape. Now let's see another example. So if I hide this layer by pressing this eye icon, let's create a star. So you can go to the shape tool, and from here let's select star tool. Again just click anywhere you want, and from here just simply hold down the shift and control key and just simply create a star. Now you can go under the polystar properties and under polystar path. From here we can change the inner and outer radius. So I'm going to increase the inner radius, something like this. Now let's quickly place this in the center of this composition using the align panel. And if you are not able to see this, again go to Windows and from here just enable it. Now let's select the layer and we can press A on the keyboard to show the anchor point, and let's set this value to 0 and 0 as well. So now we have the anchor point in the center. Again I'm going to align it just like this. So for this one we are going to add some simple animation. So we are going to add a scale animation. So I can press S on the keyboard And let's add a keyframe and change its scale value to 0. And from here I can go back and let's go to somewhere around 3 seconds, and I can just simply scale it up and make sure that it goes off the screen completely, something like this. Once again select the keyframe and just move it to the very end, just like this. So if I play back, here we have this sort of animation. So if I select the layer, press R on the keyboard, I can add a keyframe for rotation, and if I move back into the timeline somewhere around here, I can just simply set it to 360, and the number of points over here are 5, just like this, and just simply move it one frame ahead. And if you play back, you will notice that the animation is little bit off, so just make sure that its anchor point is in the center. So you can select the layer, hold down the control key, just double click it, now it's in the center. So again, once again we can align it just like this, and now if I play back, here you can see we have this perfect animation. So if I go back to the animation 2, and now you can see we have created this sort of animation, and which is completely different from what we have created earlier. So you can see how powerful this method is. Once again, you can select different values and you can get different results, something like this, and it will give you different results for these properties. In the same way, you can create any animation inside the base comp and it will give you a different result. Now I'm going to show you how to create more complex animation. So you might have seen how powerful this method is, and if you are still underestimating this, then let me show you this example. So if I just hide this layer and I can select a pen tool, and you will notice that how easily you can create a complex animation. So I selected a pen tool. Now what I'm going to do is just simply click anywhere. Let me just quickly zoom out, so you can zoom out from here and just click anywhere and just start creating some random shape just like this, and you can see we have this random shape. And make sure some of the points are outside the edge of the composition, just like this. So if I select this layer, press R on the keyboard, and let's add a keyframe for rotation, and I can again go back to the very end, and for this one we are going to set this to 360 degree, and let me show you why. Once again I'm going to move this to the very end. So you will notice one thing, that whatever animation we are creating, we are making sure that the base animation has the first frame and the last frame which is same. So if you do that, you can easily create a perfect loop. So again I can select it and just make sure it's in the center, something like this. And if you want to tweak the points, you can just simply select the pen tool, make sure the layer has selected. You can select whatever point you want, and you can select multiple points by holding down the shift key, and you can just move them by using arrow keys however you want. So we have this sort of animation. So let me just quickly select this edge and just move it a little bit up, something like this, maybe tweak it like this. And now if I go back, so if I play back, here you can see we have this animation, and which is looking like really complex. And if you show this to someone, they might be thinking how you created this, which is looking very complex. But deep down you know that it is a very simple technique. You just simply added a shape layer, just animated it, and using the power of CC Reptile, you just replicated it. So again, you can change these values and you can get completely different looks, just like this. And this is completely up to you how you want to use. And for this one, let's go with the unfold. And once again, if you want, you can just simply come here and you can just simply tweak like this. And once again, if I go back, now you can see you have completely different animation. So how powerful this animation technique is, you can just simply judge it from here. So this is how you can create more complex animation. Now we are going to create some gradient animated background. So to do that, just simply go to composition. Let's create a new comp and let's call this base animation 3. For this one, width and height will be 1920 by 1080, frame rate 30 fps, and duration let's set it to 10 seconds. Just click on OK. For this one, let's create a new solid. So you can just simply right click, go to layer, new solid, or you can go to layer and under new you can click on solid. So you can choose whatever color you want, it does not matter. Just simply click on OK. If you want, you can select the layer and you can just simply press return or enter on your keyboard, and you can just rename it to BG for background. Now we are going to add some effects to this. So first of all, we are going to add some colors. So there are two ways to add colors to this. So if you want more colors, you can add a 4 color gradient. And if you just search for 4 color grading, you can see you can have 4 colors. And if you don't want these many colors, you can just simply search for a gradient ramp and just apply this so that you will have only 2 colors. But for this one, we are going to choose 4 colors. So let me just quickly delete this, and I'm going to quickly select some colors that looks nice. So I'm going to select something like this, and let's just make it white, something like this. So this is looking good. So now we are going to add another effect. It's called Fractal Noise. So just search for Fractal Noise and you can just simply drag it onto this. So it will give you some these kinds of clouds, and we are going to tweak these properties. So first of all, we are going to change the contrast. So we are going to make it bit contrasty, something like this, and I'm going to lower down its brightness, something like this. And for this one, we are going to change the transform properties, and from here we can increase the scale. But for that, we are going to first uncheck this pop so that we can increase the scale along the X and Y axis, which gives us more control. So for this one, we are going to set this X value to quite large, something like this, and the height value to something like this. And you will notice that the value only goes to 600, and if you want to increase it beyond that, you can just simply type whatever value you want. So let's go with this 1200, and from here you can see we have this complexity parameter. So it will define the complexity of your animation or these edges. So you can just simply lower it down to 1 so that we have this kind of look. And now we are going to go under the options, and from here you can see we have the blending mode. So if I set this to overlay, you can see we are able to see our colors, and now we can animate it by simply using these two properties, evolution and offset turbulence. So if I animate the evolution, you can see we have these elements moving. So let's quickly animate it, and let's add a keyframe. So you can do that by simply clicking on this stopwatch key, and if you press U on the keyboard, it will give you a keyframe. Now you can move your cursor and just simply add another keyframe. But for this one, we are going to choose expression. So if I just simply remove all the keyframes, I can hold down the Alt or Option key if you are on Mac and just simply click on this stopwatch. It will give you an option where you can add some expression. So now you can type this expression, time times 500. And if I play back, here you can see now we don't need any keyframes and our animation will keep on going until the length of this layer. But you might notice that this is quite fast, so you can just simply lower down its speed by simply changing this value. So if I set this to 200, so now you can see we have this sort of animation which is looking good. Now let's add more animation to this. So for the other part, we are going to add some offset to this. So for this one, we are going to use keyframes. So if I add a keyframe by clicking on this stopwatch, I can select the layer, press U on the keyboard to get the keyframe, and I can just simply move to somewhere around 8 seconds, and you can just simply move it to X direction, or you can move it in the Y direction, wherever you want. So for this one, we are going to move it in the Y direction, something like this. So now if I play back, here you can see that we have this animation and it is going downwards as well, which is exactly what we want. So now I'm going to add another effect which is called twirl, and if I just simply drag it onto this layer, and you will notice that this effect will really sell out the animation. And if I just simply increase the twirl value, you can see we are getting this really nice look, and I can just simply increase its value, something like this. But you might notice that we have this problem of black edges. So in order to fix that, you can select the layer, press S on the keyboard, and you will have to scale it up. So just scale it up so that you are not able to see those black things. And if you're not able to see the edge of your solid, you can just simply click over here and it will make the edges visible just like this. So now you can see we had this sort of look, but you might notice that the colors are like really far. So if I select this layer, I can go back to the gradient. If I click over here, you can see that these endpoints which represents a color are like really far. So you can just simply select them and just move them to these edges, something like this. So now you can see our colors are popping back again in the scene. So we have this kind of look. Now we can also add some animation to the rotation. So I can select the layer, press R on the keyboard, and let's add a keyframe over here. And I can move to something like 8 seconds and just rotate it something like this. And again, if you are able to see the black edges, for example over here, you can see we are getting these black edges. So you can just simply scale it a little bit more, something like this, till you are not able to see those edges. And now we have this sort of animation. You can now probably add more rotation to this. So let me just quickly set it to something like this. So now we have more rotation to this animation. So this is looking good. And this is how you can create this sort of animation. And if you want, you can tweak these parameters. If you want to have different looks, you can just simply go over here. And if I increase the complexity, you can see we are adding more colors to this. And one more thing, you will notice that I'm working in a 16-bit channel. If you click on this, you can switch between 8-bit channel, and you can also switch between 32-bit channel. What this will do, it will give more color values, so you will have nicer look, and it will give more colors to your scene. So I'm going to select 32-bit. So now you can see we have this sort of animation. And if I increase the complexity, you can see we are getting these really nice textures. And now you can see we have this completely different look. So you can go with this one if you want. And you can also go under the twirl option and you can just simply tweak it and just add more twirls to this. So if I play back here, you can see we have this sort of animation. And you will notice one thing, that this is not a perfect loop right now. So we are going to make it into a perfect loop, and we are going to probably trim this comb. So just move to the very end and just move the endpoint. You can also press the N key on your keyboard. So wherever your cursor is, you can press N on the keyboard and it will move the edge to the timeline cursor. So just like that, right click, trim comb to work area. So we have this animation. Now let's quickly create a infinite loop. So I'm going to create another composition, and for this one I'm going to call this loop 3. Now creating loop for this one is little bit complex, so it is not that simple. So let's set this to 30 and just click on OK. So in this one I'm going to drag my base animation. Now if you remember, I said in order to create a perfect loop, you need the last and the first frame to be exactly same. So this is our very first frame, and if you click on this icon, it will take a snapshot of the frame which you can view later. So if I go to the very end, and we are right now at the very last frame, if you click on this, you can switch between the snapshot frame and your current frame. So you can see that both the frames are really different, so we need to fix that. So in order to do that, I'm going to simply select the layer, then press Ctrl+D to duplicate it. Now I'm going to zoom in, and for this one I'm going to go to 1 second and make sure you have this layer selected. Now you can add a marker by simply pressing the asterisk or star key on your keyboard, just like this, and it will add a marker. So I'm going to do the same thing to the last 1 second. So at 7 I'm going to again add a marker, just like that. So for this one I'm going to select the base composition and I'm going to trim it to this end length, and let's just simply move this to the very end, and I'm going to match the endpoint to this marker. So these are aligning in the perfect straight line, just like this. And now I'm going to simply add a animation to the opacity of this. So if I add a keyframe and I can set the value to 0, and if I move back and just simply go to the very last keyframe, I can just simply change its value to 100. So now if I just simply trim this, because we do not need that, and I can just simply trim it like this. And now if I again go back to the first keyframe and take a snapshot, and if I go back to the last keyframe and if I click over here, you can see we have created a perfect loop. So the last frame and the first frame both are same. So this is exactly what we want. So I can just simply trim it, because we will have two same keyframes at the beginning, at the end. So now I'm going to just move it over here, and I can go into the very end, and I can just simply press N on the keyboard and just trim the comp. So now if I play back, here you can see we have created a perfect loop, and it will keep on going just like this. So if you want, you can again create another composition, and let's call this animation 3. And again we can do the same thing that we did with the earlier example. Just right click, time, enable time remapping, and hold down the Alt or Option key. Just type this expression and click anywhere. You can extend the end, and now just move it like this, and now you can see we have a perfect infinite loop. So you can just simply increase its duration by moving the endpoint just like this. Now if you want to tweak this, you can go back, and from here you can add more colors, you can change them. So if you want to have different colors, you can just simply tweak them just like this. So this is completely up to you, however you want to tweak your animation, something like this. And if you want to change some parameters, you can probably decrease the complexity or increase it however you want. So let's just decrease it to something like 3, and you can probably play around with the angle. You can just make it more intense, something like this. And now if I play back, you can see we have this sort of animation, and this is how you can create animated gradient backgrounds. Now if you want, you can tweak this more by simply adding another effect called Turbulent Displacement. So you can just search for Turbulent Displace, and if you drag it on top of it, you can see that we have these like swirly edges. And if you play back, here you can see we have created different look. So this was before and this is after. So you can go with this look as well. And if you want, you can play around with these values. You can add more swirls just like that, and now you have this sort of animation. And if you are seeing black edges, you can just simply select it and just scale it up like this. You can again tweak out all these parameters however you want. You can add more complexity, you can add less swirls, something like this, just like that. And this is completely up to you however you want to use. And there is another good thing, which is the size. If you increase it, you can see you can create some really complex looking patterns just like this. And this is completely up to you however you want to tweak. And you can probably go back and change the colors. And if you don't want these many colors, you can just simply search for a gradient ramp and just drag it over here. And now you can see we have only 2 colors. You can just change them to whatever you want, just like this. So this is how you can tweak your animations and create some really interesting animated backgrounds. Alright, so we are done with this course, and I hope you learned something, and now you are pretty confident in creating some animated backgrounds on your own. So before I end this course, here is a quick recap of what you have learned in this. So in order to create a perfect loop animated background, you need 3 things. So first is the base animation. It is the very basic unit of your animated background, and using it you can create some more complex animations. Second thing is creating a pattern. So in this course we use two methods. First is the repeater. We use the repeater to repeat a certain shape layer across the whole screen and create a grid sort of pattern. The second thing we used is the CC reptile effect, which gives more control on how we organize our pattern around a base shape. And the third thing is looping your animation. So we use the time remap option, and using an expression, we just simply loop the entire animation so that we can loop it infinitely and use it wherever you want. So